Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Social Work is Life. Today we're going to be talking on how to think during the exam. Stay tuned. So usually when you think of taking the exam, if you are like me and you've taken it multiple times, you get freaked out. You get PTSD, everything starts crashing down. You just are like overwhelmed and you don't know what to do. I'm gonna give you guys 5 tips on how to go ahead and rearrange your thinking for the exam. Number 1 is that you need to realize that the exam is testing your competence and social work skills on how to deal with each situation. Now, whatever you think is right, throw it out the window. You need to go ahead and put your book knowledge hat on, okay? If you like me and you've been out in the field for many, many years, you're gonna realize that your real life knowledge really doesn't count in this test. They're trying to figure out your social work competence on a book-based test. The whole purpose of this exam is to make sure that you can keep the public safe. So you gotta make sure that you keep that in your mind. And another thing is that you have to make sure that you have client empowerment. If there's anything that you need to do in the test exam is make sure that you are thinking that the client is first. A lot, if not most of the questions on the exam are reasoning skills. Meaning there's not really a right or wrong answer per se or a recall, but it's really more about what the book says or what in a perfect scenario most of social workers would say is the right answer. And another thing that you need to realize is that our ethical values guide our clinical decision making. So on that test day, number 1, you're going to make sure that you take breaks. Now, my test was 170 questions. I'm sure that's the same for everybody, but I made sure that I took 3 different breaks. Whenever you feel that you need a break, what happens is that you think of those questions and you immediately want to rush through it, not really realizing that you have 4 hours and that is more than enough time for you to go ahead and take your test. So I have made this same mistake a couple times because I have failed the test before, and you definitely want to take advantage of those breaks. Now in Florida, we're not allowed to take food into our test exam, but I definitely had some juice so that I can go ahead and take it with me so that when I'm taking my breaks, I take that juice and it automatically sugars up my brain and it starts kickstarting it again. Okay, so make sure that you take your breaks, whether it's at question 60, 120, and 160, whatever it may be, just make sure you take your breaks. The second tip I'm going to give you guys is make sure that you read each question word for word out loud. Now, I'm not saying that you need to blurt it out so that everybody in the test center can hear you, but whisper it under your breath. I read my question about 2 or 3 times, and then I read the answers, and then I went back and read my question again. What happens when you start reading the question in your mind, you may skip through some words that are really key in your question. So make sure that you read your question out loud. Don't think you're dumb. Don't think that you're slow if you have to read it. Doesn't mean that you're dyslexic. It just means that it may take you a little bit of time for you to process the question because after all, you're freaked out and you're anxious. So no problem. Just read the question out loud, whisper it to yourself, and follow through. Another thing that you can also do is write down keywords that will pop at you, that will help you read that question and figure out what it is they're trying to tell you. Tip number 3 that I got from the Therapist Development Center is that make it a real scenario. When you're reading the question, make sure that you feel like these are actually people in your office. If you're not in the clinical setting yet, then think about people in a clinical setting, in a therapy session, and what they would do. Think of these people and put faces on them. Once you start thinking of that scenario in your head, it becomes easier for you to figure out what is the best option for that client. Tip number 4 that really helped me is thinking of yourself as the supervisor, not just as a therapist, but as the supervisor. Sometimes when we're in a higher level, we may give a different answer versus when we are in the situation ourselves. Think of the scenario as in third person. So you are there and you are seeing the scenario. What would you do as the supervisor of this therapist? And number 5, here in Florida, we are able to have a notepad or a dry erase board. Definitely take advantage of that. Fill it all up. What I really recommend is that when you first go into the test, write down every single thing that you can remember. For me, I wrote down some medications. I wrote down some of Freud's theories. I wrote down some shorthand on Piaget. I wrote down some of the quick notes that I needed to know about family therapy, about couples therapy, some of my ethics notes, everything that is fresh in your mind that you can shorthand. Definitely write that within the first couple minutes, even before answering your first question. Why? Because once you start answering your questions and you start reading through them, that information may get a little jumbled up. So definitely write some quick notes on everything that you remember and everything that you feel is important for your test taking. Trust me, it's going to help you. That is all I have for you guys today. If you have taken the test and you're just reading through this because you just want to know what other people have done, if you have other tips that really helped you during your test taking, make sure that you comment them below. I hope that you guys really enjoyed this, that this helped you a little bit. Trust me, you're going to be nervous, but it is going to be fine if you follow these 5 steps. I hope that this really motivates you, that it encourages you. You've got this. Happy test taking, and till the next time.